Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're going to bring you a first look at forthcoming Tier 9 Premium American Light Cruiser. This is USS Vallejo. Vallejo is, well, she seems to be a bit of a proto-Worcester. I mean, when you look at this ship, you get a sense that she's very closely related to Worcester, especially when you look at this forward turret layout and you realize that this is, as near as I can figure, the same dual-purpose double-barreled 6-inch auto loaders that you find on Worcester. But of course, Vallejo is a different hull, a different gun layout. She has only 3 turrets forward and 2 aft versus Worcester's 3 forward and 3 aft. So a different ship, a tier lower down. Let's poke around and see what we can learn and see what some of the differences are. See where she fits in. As we do, starting with survivability, 44,000 hit points. Pretty solid for a Tier 9 light cruiser. Very comparable to the competition. What do I mean by that? Well, there aren't too many Tier 9 light cruisers. Really, Vallejo would only be, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6th, really, right? Donskoy would have been the first. I still consider Donskoy to be a light cruiser because she doesn't hit the 8-inch gun threshold. Her guns are like 7.1 inches or something like this, the 180mm guns. So I still consider that ship to be a light cruiser. And then, of course, Neptune, British HMS Neptune, obviously still very much a light cruiser, but of course, AP-only shells over on Neptune. Then you have the 2 Pan-Asian entries, that's Sejong and the Premium Dalian. Both of them have less than 30,000 hit points, all right? And then, of course, over in the American tech tree, you have USS Seattle, a very close cousin to this ship, obviously. Still 152mm guns, still an American ship with the good AA and all the other perks that brings. So there's only a handful of light cruisers at Tier 9, and Vallejo is very, very favorably compared to them in terms of health. 44,000 hit points is only a few hundred hit points behind Neptune, who is best in class in that sense. Now, I'm not going to say best in tier, because there's a whole lot of Tier 9 super cruisers and heavy cruisers that have a lot more health than this, right? 65,000 plus in some cases. So obviously you are not going to compare to that. But as far as light cruisers go, you are in good shape. Torpedo protection, 4%, is terrible. I mean, it's a light cruiser. Don't take torpedoes. And in this ship, that's actually going to be a bigger challenge than you think. And I'll explain why I feel that way in just a minute. Armor layout, again, it's a light cruiser. There's not a lot to get excited about here. 25mm bow means you pretty much aren't bow tanking. Well, you'll run into some Tier 7 battleships that you could theoretically bow tank with this armor. But the overwhelming majority of battleships you will run into, you will not have this problem. You do have 38mm of deck armor. This means that in engagements with opposing light cruisers, you fare kind of favorably here. For example, this light cruiser only pins 30mm of armor, in the sense of, without IFHE, I cannot pin the deck of my own ship, right? Or I probably, a Seattle couldn't pin my deck, right? Or, well, a Donskoy probably could, because he gets the little extra pin there out of the 180s. But the bottom line is, unless they're investing in IFHE, you can actually shrug off some of the shells plunging onto your deck. And you'll be able to do that with some of the destroyers as well. Now, the bad news is, your casemate armor is not going to have that benefit, right? This is all about plunging fire at long range. And we'll talk more about how I think this ship is going to play in a minute. But yeah, as soon as you get into mid-range, close range, they're not going to be falling on your deck probably. They're going to be going into your casemate or your superstructure, and those will be full pins. Nothing to get excited about in the armor scheme. We'll take a quick look at the Citadel so you can see how bad it is, and, well, let's just say it's not good. Citadel starting, of course, forward of turret A, running all the way to the aft end of turret Y. It does stick up just a bit above the waterline. I'd say maybe about half the freeboard of the ship when you get away from the superstructure. So yes, lots and lots of Citadel to hit, and only 102mm on that belt. So flat broadside, lots of things will crush you. When you angle it a bit, you will generate some auto bounces or some ricochets. But in general, this is a ship that does not want to get shot at from, well, any angle. It's gonna be bad. As soon as you get shot at, it's gonna get bad. Maneuverability and concealment. Now, the parallels to Worcester really kind of draw themselves very starkly in these two categories. For starters, maximum speed. Vallejo is a half knot slower than Worcester. Other than that, these numbers are the same. So you're 32.5 knots on the top speed, 740 on the turning circle, 10.7 on the rudder shift. These last two numbers match up Worcester absolutely 100% identically. So she's going to handle very similar to Worcester. If you've driven a Worcester, if you've got that Tier 10 American light cruiser, you pretty much know what you're getting into here. Concealment. This is one area where she excels a little bit when you put her next to that close cousin. Worcester, full stealth rig Worcester, I believe gets down to about 9.7, 9.8 on the surface, something like this. Vallejo here with her smaller base detection can get all the way down to 9 flat. Now that sounds really awesome. Raptor don't American light cruisers get 9-kilometer radar? Well, they do. Except Vallejo doesn't get radar, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. So it feels bad, but you are stealthier. In fact, you're way stealthier than a Neptune, who cranks in at like 10 and change, if memory serves, a full stealth Neptune. So yeah, there's a lot to like about how stealthy the ship is. Again, right now able to get down to 9 flat on the surface, which is stealthier than Sejong, but not quite as stealthy as Dalian. Dalian edging her out by just a hair. Artillery, this is what you're really here for, right? Vallejo's main battery is, well, these are Worcester guns, right? You've got three of these dual-purpose, double-barreled, 152mm autoloaders, 3 forward of the superstructure, and 2 back aft. Now, unlike Worcester, these guns reload in 5.5 seconds. For Worcester, that number is 4.6. So your DPM is obviously lower than Worcester for 2 reasons. 1, you have 2 fewer barrels, right? Worcester has an extra turret here on the stern of the ship. And 2, your reloader is about 20-ish% slower. So all in, you are not putting out tier 10 DPM, but your DPM is still really good. In fact, the DPM of this ship is going to be pretty comparable to that of Seattle. They're nearly identical. They're within you're talking about the AP DPM of this ship. Let me go scroll over to make sure I'm not lying to you. Yeah, okay. The HE DPM of Seattle is just a hair over 240,000. In her current iteration of testing, the DPM of Vallejo is her HE DPM is exactly 240,000. So, not even a percentage point, maybe a half a percentage point off between, maybe 1%, 2% off between this and Seattle. So in terms of firepower, you're getting Seattle. What I'm hoping you're going to get is a easier to drive ship, an easier to handle ship that maybe has a little less utility. And we're going to have to dive in more of that when we get to the consumables. But DPM-wise, very, very comparable to her contemporaries in this department. So lots to like there. Range, 16.7 kilometers. Again, this is identical to Worcester. Same guns, same performance, same shell ballistics, same shell travel times, all of that sort of thing. Nothing unusual there. If you fired Worcester's guns, you know exactly what you're getting into. Same shell, 2200 HE, 3200 AP, and 12% fire chance. A defenses. This is one area where, again, as an American light cruiser, you would expect this ship to be good in. She does not disappoint. For starters, her outer bubble goes out to 6.9 kilometers. That is absolutely tied up there for best in tier with Seattle and Neptune. She puts up 6 flak puffs in that bubble. That is a little better than Seattle. Not quite as good as Neptune and way worse, and not nearly as good as Sejong. But of course, Sejongs don't go out quite this far. So this is really good flak. You could wish for a little more of it. You could make an argument for the extra flak, the AA module upgrade 3 or upgrade A module slot in upgrade slot 6. That would give you extra flak when you activate defensive fire. You can make an argument for that on this ship if you really, really want to slaughter planes. Continuous damage, 116 in the outer bubble, 378, and you see there that middle ring goes out to 4 kilometers. That is a little unusual for most American light cruisers. Most of them stop at 3.5, but Vallejo here getting a little extra beef on the back of these 76.2 double mounts. And then 20mm Oerlikons. So yeah, there's a lot to like here. Really, really good A bubble, I think. I want to see it in action. I want to be able to try and put the ship through its paces, but it feels really good. It's not best in tier, but it's incredibly competitive for best in tier. It's up there, right? So this thing, with a little bit of effort, a flag, a little bit of captain skill investment, this thing will slaughter planes very, very nicely. And again, that AA range, 6.9 kilometers, means carrier drivers have to be very frosty of where you are in a battle and pay heed to what you're up to. Let's see. Have we hit everything? Armor, survivability, artillery. I mean, she's got depth charges. Yep, 7 kilometers. So there they are. You know they exist, but I'm not going to belabor the point. Yep. Let's go have a look at consumables real fast, because that is a big conversation we need to have with this ship. Most American light cruisers get access to radar, and I mentioned this earlier. Vallejo does not. Okay, she obviously, as a ship in World of Warships, gets access to damage control party. This comes standard. She does get forced into defensive fire. This is the change, right? Most American light cruisers get to choose between one of the changes. Get to choose between defensive fire and hydro. Vallejo does not. She is forced into defensive fire. That's good. She'll kill planes good. But it does mean she's going to be just that much more vulnerable to submarines and torpedoes. So that feels perhaps less good. This is a ship that, as I look at it initially, strikes me as one that might be good in certain competitive modes, but probably will function best in a division, right? Imagine pairing this up with a really nice hydro destroyer, say a Z-46, just to pick an easy example, or even a Jutland. The ability to use the hydro, well, Jutland might not be the right idea, but you see where I'm going, right? Like if you paired it up with the right compatriot ship, the AA cover would be really solid. You'd have some hydro, you'd have a little bit of smoke, perhaps. There's a lot to like here. Oh, you know what would be really good? Like a Friesland or a Groningen. Yeah, that'd be a really good pairing for this ship with that long duration smoke, the long range hydro, and then of course you've got all of that HE spammy fire shells to throw at people. You'd piss off a lot of battleships doing that. She's a Tier 9 cruiser. She does get a heal, standard heal. This is not the fancy heal the Brits get, so this is a typical heal, same heal that Seattle gets, all right? And then for her last consumable slot, you get a choice between fighter, pro tip, don't take fighter, or what Wargaming is now calling rapid takeoff spotter. This is a variant of the spotting aircraft mechanic that they have previously implemented on ships like Lazo. So it has a short duration. You see they're only up for 60 seconds and an incredibly short reload time, only 10 seconds downtime. So you can keep this up for nearly 5 continuous minutes with only a couple of small breaks. So that gives her a 20% bonus to her range. That means that this ship can lob shells out to, we do the math, nearly 20 kilometers. Her range should top out right at like 19.9 kilometers or so. That is insane. Actually, it should actually go just a touch over 20. That's insane. I don't know what the flight time on the shells is to that range, but it's gonna be crazy. This is a ship that would absolutely love to camp behind an island and just pick on some stationary cruiser, a Stalingrad, a Kronstadt, somebody else that wants to park behind something and use his radar and kind of cover an area and think he's all safe, and you're just dropping those shells in, just plopping them onto his deck more or less vertically. Now, depending on the ship that you're harassing this way, you're probably going to be shattering a lot of those shells. But remember, many of those ships that you're going to be targeting, they will burn longer than the traditional cruiser length, right? They'll probably burn 60 seconds. So you can do a lot of fire damage. What's some of the notable things that are missing? Well, we talked about radar. There's no radar. There's no smoke. There's no hydro. So for a light cruiser, this is a very, very different kind of play style. Almost like an open water Worcester. Like, I'm not sure you could run this ship effectively for long durations in open water, not with that armor scheme. She's going to handle like a Worcester, and Worcester can be pretty wiggly, and she can dodge some shells and that sort of thing. So you got that going for you. But sooner or later, somebody's going to catch you. Sooner or later, you're going to take some AP full pins down the long axis of the ship. They're going to hit you right through the stern or catch you right here on this plate, this little elevated deck. They'll punch some shells in through here. Again, they probably won't be citadels, but they'll be full pins down the long axis of the ship. Enough of those, and you're going to be hurting. You're going to feel it, especially if you're picking on something bigger than you. The ship wants to hunt destroyers, but really lacks the tools to do it, doesn't she? No hydro, no radar, no way to really spot things other than with her face. And closing with a destroyer without that access to hydro is dicey, right? You got to really, really be on the ball. That's why I say I feel like this is a ship, just on the face of it, that would be really, really good in division play. She'd make a great companionship in a brawl or a 2 or 3 man division for running around and derping in randoms. But I'm not convinced that she's going to be a great ship for solo play, because she's going to be very reliant on her teammates to spot for her and give her targets to shoot. And barring that, you're in randoms, that's a lot. Like, it sounds awful to say, but in randoms, you don't have any idea, right? You might get that. Your team might surprise you. But if you go into a random game counting on it, sooner or later, and I'm going to say this probably 65% of the time, you're going to be disappointed. right? Your team's not going to do what you want, not what you expect, not what you need them to do for you to be effective. So if you're going to play this ship in randoms a lot, it feels like you're going to have to bring your own friends, bring your own spotters, bring your own smoke, bring your own hydro. Anyway, guys, there's our first look at Vallejo. Hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands, be safe, and I'll catch you next time.